Hey, this is Ben. Let's review Flydigi's new Vader 5 Pro controller. After a long wait, Flydigi's finally released their successor to what most people consider the best overall controller of 2024, the Vader 4 Pro. The packaging is very standard and has basically been the same since the Vader 3 Pro, maybe even earlier, but the 3 Pro was my first Flydigi controller, so that's my earliest reference. Inside is a two-piece plastic shell, and in the back there's a little information slip with QR codes and some info on the latest Flydigi products, a paper manual with layout information, connection options, and some mappings and commands that can be done on board, and a basic 3-foot USB-A to USB-C cable. Then, inside the shell, you have the 2.4 GHz dongle, and putting the main event aside for a second, underneath are the removable back paddles. Make sure you take the paddles before throwing out the packaging. They blend in with the plastic and can be easy to forget about. And finally, you have the controller itself. The Vader 5 Pro is a multi-platform controller that's compatible on PC, Nintendo Switch, Android, and iOS. It can connect by cable, by wireless with the included dongle, and by Bluetooth. Probably the biggest selling point of this controller is their joystick tech, that they call ForceFlex joysticks. They're Hall effect sticks that are designed and made in-house by Flydigi, and they're unique in how they recenter the sticks, how they limit the outer movement, and in their tension adjustment mechanism. The controller pulls at 1000 Hz by default, and according to their official marketing, on wired it has about 3 milliseconds input latency and on dongle 4 milliseconds. Based on independent gamepadlet testing, those numbers are accurate, which makes the controller latency very impressive, especially on dongle wireless connection. They have Hall effect analog triggers as well as micro switch digital triggers that's changed with a switch on the back of the controller. The ABXY face buttons are also micro switch, while the rest of the buttons are tactile switches. The Vader 5 Pro now has 8 remappable extra buttons and paddles, which is 2 more than on the Vader 4 Pro. They've redesigned their back buttons layout, which now includes 2 buttons and 2 removable paddles. They've kept the extra C and Z face buttons, and now they've added 2 extra shoulder buttons called LM and RM, the same as what they added on their Apex 5. The logo on the front is now the home and power button, and they've moved the function button and a new turbo button to the underside of the controller. They've redesigned the charging dock, so the connection pins are now on the back of the controller, and they've also redesigned the phone holder mount to make space for the new extra shoulder buttons. This means that the Vader 5 Pro won't be compatible with the older Vader 4 Pro charging dock, and vice versa, and also won't be compatible with the old phone holder mount style. The internal battery has a 1000 mAh capacity, which is 200 more than the 800 mAh battery of the Vader 4 Pro. On first impressions, the Vader 5 Pro looks and feels very premium. It comes in at an MSRP of $80 US, which is the same as the Vader 4 Pro MSRP, but the 5 Pro is a step up in almost every category compared to the 4 Pro. Comparing the shapes of the 5 Pro and the 4 Pro, the 5 Pro is ever so slightly smaller than the 4 Pro. The 5 Pro looks almost identical in shape to the Series X controller, and I find it a bit more comfortable in my hands than the 4 Pro did. The face of the 5 Pro is also more rounded, while the 4 Pro is more flat. The plastic construction looks and feels higher quality on the 5 Pro, and the backside of the handles now have a rubberized grip as opposed to the stippled texture of the 4 Pro. I like the gold tension adjustment rings. Black and gold is always a classy color combination, but these little gold specks on the logo faceplate is tacky and looks kind of like an accident. I would have preferred if the logo was just colored gold instead. The face buttons being the same gray as on the Vader 4 Pro also looks a little out of place now with the new color scheme. Maybe have them be a transparent black instead to blend in more. These are nitpicks though, and the controller still looks really good and really classy even as is. The triggers are now smoky transparent with a very slight gold tint to it, which also adds to the classy look in my opinion. The controller weighs in at 286 grams, paddles attached, which is about 20 grams heavier than the Vader 4 Pro. You can definitely feel the difference in weight, and the 5 Pro has a nice balance to it. The face buttons feel the same on the 5 Pro and the 4 Pro. The lowered placement of the start and select buttons is much better though. The C and Z buttons are quieter with a more muted sound. I think the new D-pad is an improvement. It sounds nicer and feels bouncier if that makes any sense to you, and I like the shape better for not hitting accidental diagonals. Unlike with the Apex 5 D-pad though, the Vader 5 Pro D-pad doesn't have a center pivot, so if you press down on the center of the pad, you can press in all 4 of the cardinal directions at once. This is a miss in my opinion, and I don't understand why they didn't add a pivot, when it looks and feels the exact same as the Apex 5, which does have one. The tension rings feel about the same to me, maybe slightly harder to turn on the 5 Pro. The tension rings getting looser during gaming seem to be a pretty big problem with a lot of people on the 4 Pro, and there hasn't been any new design iterations with the new rings on the 5 Pro as far as I can see. We'll see if it will continue to be a problem for people. I've personally never had an issue with my Vader 4 Pro rings getting loose, so I'm not worried about the rings on the 5 Pro here, considering they feel about the same or even slightly tighter. The trigger shape has been changed on the 5 Pro, again being closer to the shape of the triggers on the Series X controller, but I personally like the flatter triggers of the 4 Pro a lot more. The more sloped shape of the new triggers can get a little uncomfortable for me in longer gaming sessions, unless I adjust how I press them just a bit. The digital triggers feel like they've been improved somehow. They have a little bit less pre-travel now, and feel like they have more snappiness and bounce back than on the Vader 4 Pro. The extra shoulder buttons are nice with a good press resistance, but like I said in my Apex 5 review, I would have liked them to be just a little bit taller and closer to the triggers. Moving to the back of the controller, the most obvious change between the two models are the back buttons of course. Ergonomically, the new buttons and paddles are well placed, and if you're a fan of the paddle placement on the Elite Series 2 controllers, you'll be a fan of these ones as well. Personally, I like the old layout a lot more. I know, controversial take to a lot of you. With the games I play and the way I map extra buttons, I don't ever need to hit the 2 buttons on the same side at the same time, and I prefer being able to grip the handles with both my ring and pinky fingers, as opposed to just my pinky fingers. It gives me a more solid hold on the controller, which feels more comfortable for me. Like I said earlier, the back handles now have a rubberized texture, which is nice. It feels good and provides good grip. My only concern with the rubber texture grips is always longevity. I've owned Elite Series 2 controllers in the past, and the rubber grips would start to get loose and peel very quickly. The rubber on these handles feel a lot stiffer though, so maybe that won't be a concern. We'll see how they hold up long term. All in all, I'm pretty impressed with how many positive changes have been made from the Vader 4 Pro to the 5 Pro, and keeping the same MSRP, color me even more impressed. I've basically only been playing Black Ops 7 since its release, and from a pure performance perspective, this controller is about as good as it needs to be for me. The stick latency is excellent and I play wired, but if you're someone who wants to play wireless, the latency is excellent on dongle as well. I bought the Vader 4 Pro as soon as it released and made the controller for almost the whole year. I got used to how the sticks felt and responded, and even though there are stick modules that are more accurate and technically better performing, the feel and smoothness of the Flydigi modules are so unique that it's a little hard for me to use other controllers with more conventional module tech. It's unfortunate that there's still Hall effect as opposed to TMR, but honestly, I really can't tell very much difference in performance at all. The Vader 5 Pro fixes what was the biggest issue of the Vader 4 Pro in the stick latency. The higher latency of the 4 Pro was what prevented me from recommending it for purely competitive gaming. But now with the 5 Pro, that's no longer an issue. For Call of Duty Black Ops 7 and earlier COD titles, I would give the Vader 5 Pro my full seal of approval. Based on the fact that the stick modules are pretty much unchanged from the 4 Pro, it probably doesn't have the most linear curve by default, but software can improve that quite a bit, and for a game like COD, with how fast you can move, how fast you can kill, and how strong aim assist is, stick linearity is not super important, especially since most people use the dynamic stick response curve anyways, which defeats the whole purpose of linear responsiveness. If you're an Apex Legends gamer though, where the TTK is a lot higher and the aim assist is lower, linearity is going to be a lot more important. I can't comment on how the Vader 5 Pro performs on that game though, since I haven't played it in a long time, and when I used to play it a lot, I was on mouse and keys for the most part.
Plasma grenade. In my sights. Shot caller.
Halo Infinite is another game that I've played a lot, and I got a few games in with the 5 Pro. It's been a while though, so I'm pretty rusty, but just like with COD, I'm very happy with the performance. And when I can finally pull myself away from the Call of Duty grind and shake the rust off of my Halo skills, I'll really be able to put the controller through its paces and give a better recommendation for this game specifically.
Double kill. Triple kill. Power items incoming.
So far so good though, and I imagine it'll only get better the more I get used to it.
Outstanding. Killing spree. Power items have arrived. Victory.
The software app for the Vader 5 Pro is the Flydigi Space Station 4, which is separate from the Space Station 3 app that Flydigi's previous models, like the Vader 4 Pro and Apex 4 use. It's not the prettiest looking UI, but it's pretty straightforward and easy to navigate, which is really all that matters. On the left bar here, you can cycle through 4 separate profiles where you can set up different mappings. These settings are saved onto the controller board, so you don't need to keep the software open, and you can also switch between the profiles by pressing the function button and one of the ABXY face buttons. By the way, Flydigi does a decent job of explaining what the settings do when you hover over these question marks. The settings bar at the bottom will take you to the app settings, the special controller settings, like the joystick global settings, and the updates for the app as well as the controller that's connected to it. Back to the main page, you have 5 tabs for the different controller settings. The first is for the RGB lights and the grip vibration. The second tab tells you to use the controller layout above it for customizing your button mappings. You don't actually have to be on this tab to do this. You can do it no matter the tab you're currently on, and it'll automatically switch to the button tab once you press a button to remap it. From here, you'll have options to map the buttons to an existing controller button or a keyboard function, and you can also set up the turbo, macro, and map to one of your mouse functions. Tab 3 is for the joystick settings, and you can change the circularity, choose between the different sensitivity curves, or make a custom one with these 2 points, and change the inner and outer dead zones. The fourth tab is for gyro, which I know nothing about, so you'll have to go to someone else for more information about this. And the last tab is for your trigger and trigger vibration settings. On the right here is another page called Advanced Test. From here you can test and make sure that all of your buttons are working and detected, as well as your joysticks. All of your setting changes are saved on the fly, and you don't need to have the app running in order to use those settings, unless you map keyboard functions, in which case you'll need to have the space station service running in the background. Having used the Vader 5 Pro a decent amount now, I can confidently say that it'll be my new main controller moving forward, at least for COD and Halo, and at least until new releases come along that'll inevitably be better and will definitely give me FOMO if I don't get them. I could just not be smart enough to be able to think ahead into the future, but it seems to me like controller hardware, firmware, and software tech has gotten so good now that improvements are going to become more incremental moving forward, and ergonomics and feature sets are going to be the important selling points, with performance becoming pretty much equal across the board. Back to the Vader 5 Pro though, it's not perfect by any means, and I'll get into some of the negatives in a bit, but the ergonomics are great and the controller is very comfortable for me to hold, minus my small issue with the new trigger shape. It has all of the extra features and buttons that I could ask for. The tension rings that they introduced with the Vader 4 Pro has become something of a crutch for me that it's hard for me to use other controllers without adjustable tension now. The build quality and materials, at least on my unit, is solid, and I personally just love the clean and more simple aesthetics of Flydigi's Vader lineup. It looks classy and professional, and almost like something that you would display on a trophy cabinet. Moving on to some cons, the biggest thing that this controller suffers from, and really all controllers sold by the Chinese third party, Flydigi is not unique in this as much as the haters might say different, is quality control and design flaws that don't get rooted out before official release because of the lax quality control policies. There's one big design flaw that's making waves right now, and I mentioned this in my Apex 5 review, but it sucks that my concerns are turning out to be true. That flaw is with the new back paddles on the Vader 5 Pro and the Apex 5. Like I pointed out with my Apex review, I was concerned about the amount of post travel that the paddles had after actuating the button, and I explicitly said that this could cause the paddles or the mechanism associated with the design to break, and now there have been reports of that exact thing happening with people's Vaders and Apexes. This is a huge flaw and something that I wouldn't blame you for if you decided to pass on this controller because of it. Luckily for the people who've already bought these controllers, someone on Reddit came up with the idea to put small silicone cabinet stops on the underside of the paddles to prevent them from pushing too far past the actuation point. We'll see how this potential fix lasts in the long term, but I think it should work out well, except maybe for the players who really death grip their controllers. If you're still wanting to get this controller, Gadget Hyper, who are official selling partners of Flydigi products, are providing the properly sized rubber stops for all Vader 5 Pro and Apex 5 purchases from their store. This doesn't excuse Flydigi though, especially considering that they haven't even made a public statement about it, at least on any of their official English platforms. And I think that they should be offering compensation for anyone who's had their back paddle mechanism break, regardless of where they bought their controllers from. Outside of this big time flaw, there have been reports of some other issues. The loosening tension rings is a common one that people report, and issues with apparently squeaky D-pads and excessive pre-travel on certain D-pad directions. I haven't had any of these problems with my unit, so it hasn't been a concern for me. With these pros and cons, do I still recommend the controller? Honestly, yes, but with a big caveat. Buy it from a reputable store with rock-solid warranty and after-sales support. For Flydigi products, there's two that I can think of, at least for my part of the world. Those two are Amazon and Gadget Hyper. If you can't purchase the controller from these two places, and there aren't other reputable sellers where you are, and you're still willing to buy the controller, then I hope that you get good QC and definitely do the silicone pad mod for the paddles. The Flydigi Vader 5 Pro is a great controller, but with flaws like every other controller that has come before it. Hopefully Flydigi and other bigger name Chinese controller companies can figure out their QC issues sooner rather than later. If they do, Sony, Microsoft, and the other bigger names will have no choice but to innovate and offer better value, and that's a good thing for us, the consumers. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you found this video useful and helpful, and check out my other controller reviews if you want to know more and have a better informed purchasing decision. Thanks again, and until next time.